Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Mad Meta Magic, where we make the magic meta mad. I'm Kano, and today we're going to try playing Dimir turns. So for those of you that don't know, this is a deck that tries to play Solitaire by taking all of the turns possible with extra turn spells, and beating down with like a Brazen Borrower or something. To accomplish this goal, we have our big old pile of 9 Time Warps, as well as Mystic Sanctuaries to rebuy the actual card Time Warp. We have Jace the Mind Sculptor because we're running Temporal Mastery, and we're using black for disruption and kill spells. So, alright, let's take it into a league and see what happens. Alright. Round 1, here we go. We're on the play, which does make a huge difference. But we're running Gemstone Caverns, so we kind of wish we were on the draw. This hand is a little bit slow, so I'm going to mulligan. This is a lot better. I'm going to keep. I'm going to put back Fatal Push because we have no black mana. And we're going to spend our early turns basically just playing Howling Mine. So, I used to play Taking Turns a lot. And it is one of my favorite decks. Taking extra turns is one of my favorite things to do in all of Magic. One of the big problems with like Howling Mine is your opponent gets to draw an extra card first, which is one reason why Dictate was such an upgrade. But it's really good versus decks that have like Thought-Knot Seer or Hand Hate, that sort of a thing. Because we are drawing so many redundant extra cards that, like, we don't really have to worry about our opponent taking any individual card. Frequently we can just like draw into more cards that are what we need, because we're kind of a redundant pile of cards. So here I am going to Giga Drowse. I don't want my opponent to play Thought-Knot Seer. We're probably going to Exhaust and then put Exhaust on top of the deck. Mystic Sanctuary, I have not played since Mystic Sanctuary was printed, actually. I've not played this deck type since Mystic Sanctuary was printed. And I think that Mystic Sanctuary probably helps take this deck over the top. It's interesting to see it played in a list, once again, not my list. Interesting to see it played in a list that is running Time Warp spells that exile themselves, but we also have Exhaustion, so I guess it kind of makes sense. Okay. Opponent gets in for 3. We take 3, we go to 17. We untap. Well, first our opponent has to discard. They discard a Mana Reshaper. We draw 2 cards. I really like the... I don't know what people ended up calling these, Buddy Lands or Santa Lands, because they're checking it twice. But I really like them in Modern. I think if your deck is 2 colors and you run a lot of basics, you absolutely should be playing them. So we'll put Mystic Sanctuary down and put Exhaustion on top of the deck. Then pass the turn. So we're going to just Exhaustion chain into the point where we can cast multiple Dictates of Kruphix, draw a million cards, hit any Time Warp, and be fine. We do have to watch for our opponent playing something like Warping Whale, because it can counter sorceries, and most of our big Time Warps are sorceries. Okay, we draw Exhaustion, we draw Fatal Push. So let's exhaust our opponent again. Play Mystic Sanctuary. Put Exhaustion on top of the deck. Man, this is brutal. Howling Mine into Exhaustion, double Mystic Sanctuary, putting Exhaustion back on top of the deck. We did draw a 3rd, but of course we didn't get to use it. Alright. Opponent will be able to have Tron mana. Okay. So, let's see what our opponent discards here. I think it's unlikely that they have Warping Whale. I don't even know if they run it main deck. But we're going to flash in Dictate now. We want to try and hit a basic land. Temporal Mastery, unfortunately, at the wrong position in the deck. Mikokoro, though, is fine. Exhaust our opponent. Okay. Opponent cracks Expedition Map to get Urza's Tower, but none of their lands untapped now. And we're drawing 3 cards a turn. I mean, so is our opponent, but, like, they have no mana. We are, like, right on the cusp of going off here. In fact, if we draw an untapped land, we are. Okay, opponent has to discard 3 cards. Eldrazi Temple, Wastes, and an Expedition map. We untap. We draw Force of Negation, Exhaustion, and Time Warp. Okay. So I'm going to Time Warp first. And my logic behind that is I don't mind ending on an Exhaustion. But the more turns we take like in a row immediately is the less chances our opponent has to play stuff, because they almost exclusively play things at sorcery speed. Cryptic Command helps quite a bit. Alright. Get a Polluted Delta. So play Polluted Delta, crack Polluted Delta, we'll get a island. I almost said forest, I don't know why. Cast Temporal Mastery. Okay. No reason not to cast the Serum Visions here. Draw Snapcaster, Water Grave to the bottom, Jace to the top. Okay. Untap. We draw Jace, and then 2 additional cards. Time Warp, Brazen Borrower. So we don't have enough mana to cast Jace and Time Warp. So what I'm going to do is exhaust my opponent, which basically like leaves a turn in queue. Time Warp ourselves. Okay. We do need to find a way to win the game relatively soonish. It's not that we don't have one, we just have to actually win the game with it. Okay. So I'm going to just... I have 9 mana. I think the play is to just Snapcaster Time Warp. Yeah. Snapcaster Mage, target Time Warp. Time Warp, target us. There's a very famous moment of me very drunkenly Time Warping my opponent when I meant to Time Warp myself or cast Exhaustion on my opponent, and I got confused. Good times. Made it into a Channel Fireball's like top 5 punts. Or top 10 punts or something like that. I don't remember. Okay. So now... Serum Visions. Dictate Snapcaster to the bottom, part the Water Veil to the top. I will shock this in. Go to combat. Attack for 2. So we can let our opponent have a turn, but we're holding up multiple Cryptic Commands and a Force of Negation, so I really doubt there's anything they can do. If I wanted to be super safe, and I think I do, I'm going to bounce Urza's Tower and draw, just to make sure they really can't do anything with their mana this turn. We'll discard Fatal Push and a Jace. Okay, and if our opponent does nothing, we just flash in Brazen Borrower. Okay, opponent has 12 cards in hand. We play an Urza's Tower. Counter draw. Okay. So opponent passes. Part the Water Veil, I think, is my favorite way to win in turns. When Infinite Life decks were common, this deck used to run like Inkmoth Nexus to animate, which is pretty sweet tech, because then you could do 2 hits of like 7 Infect, which is pretty fantastic. So that's 7, 8, 9. Awaken, part the Water Veil onto an island. Go to combat. Attack for 8. Take our opponent to 10. Okay. Discard Misty Rainforest, untap. Draw a bunch of cards. Play an island. Go to combat. Attack for 8. One thing about playing this game playing this deck online versus playing it in paper is you really have to pay attention to your clock, because the game is very long every time you win. So just be aware. So versus my opponent's deck, I kind of want Thoughtseizes. Fatal Push kills almost nothing, so I'm going to take Fatal Push out. Collective Brutality is pretty meh as well. I might bring in like a Tassiger over Collective Brutality. Like I said, the only real counterspell threat is Warping Whale. Brutality could kill Matter Reshapers, but that's not necessarily a good thing. So it can eliminate Dead of Winter. I guess I could bring in Dead of Winter, but that's kind of ambitious. We'd need at least 5 lands to Wrath, and if our opponent's sticking early Reality what is that card? Reality Smashers. If my opponent's sticking early Reality Smashers, that's not going to help a lot. Engineered Explosives, we could put it on 2. We had to. I think I'll just bring in a Tassiger, and we'll run it back. But man, Mystic Sanctuary Exhaustion Loop. That seems really sweet. It's kind of tempting to keep this, but I don't think we can actually keep this. So, Jace Temporal Mastery, though, is fantastic. I will keep this. We're going to put back... Snapcaster Mage, and for Gemstone Caverns, we're going to exile Temporal Mastery. Our opponent has mulligan to 4. So, Gemstone Caverns says that you have to give up a land, or give up a card out of hand. We're going to exile Temporal Mastery, because we're a long ways off of Temporal Mastery. Opponent mulligan to 4? Is there any way we can lose? I mean, probably, right? So let's Thoughtseize, see what they kept. Mine Tower Power Plant. Alright. Well, we gotta be careful with this Howling Mine, then. I mean, we still have to play it, but... They play an Urza's Mine. We untap. We draw Tassiger. We could Serum Visions and try and hit a land before playing Howling Mine, but I think we just need to play Howling Mine. This does give my opponent an additional draw after assembling Tron, which Tron is a good hand of 4 or 3 to keep. You know, if you had to pick a hand of 4 or 3, especially because your opponent can just top deck things like Karn Great Creator and immediately take you off mana for the rest of the game. This isn't game over because we do have Tassiger, but it's very close because my opponent will likely pretty much always have a way to take me off of mana. Like, they're going to draw something before we can really do anything, I think. Alright, play a Snow-Covered Island, play a Serum Visions. We draw another Serum Visions. Time Warp to the bottom, Thoughtseize to the bottom. Serum Visions. We draw Swamp, which is really good. Polluted Delta to the bottom, Temporal Mastery on top. Pass the turn. So now, even if my opponent blows up a land on their turn, next turn we can undo their land destruction spell with a Temporal Mastery. Okay, they play a Blast Zone. They're going to kill Mystic Sanctuary. I don't know if that's right. I think I would rather take out Gemstone Caverns. They play a map. And pass. We untap. We draw Temporal Mastery and reveal it. We're going to see what else we draw first. Don't think that matters. We don't really have any decisions we can make. So, Miracle Temporal Mastery. Play a tap land. Pass the turn. Untap. We draw Exhaustion and Cling to Dust. So, play a Swamp. Exhaust our opponent. Don't really think that does anything, but you never know, it might. Play Tassiger. The problem is, our opponent can undo that Time Warp by playing Tech Edge now, because we're not all basics. But the real question is, can they put something in front of Tassiger? They play an Urza's Mine. They're going to wish for Sundering Titan. Oh no. Yeah, that's a problem. Well, opponent mulligan to 4 and beat us, because that's how Tron operates. But we were close. Opponent had to top deck Karn Great Creator, but we did give them an additional draw to do it. Alright, untap. Opponent's going to put our Gemstone Caverns on mute. We draw an island and a Dictate. Play a Snow-Covered Island. We're going to exile a island to draw a card. Yeah. Alright. This game's up. Yeah, our opponent just had the fortune to go first with Tron, basically. They assembled Tron on the play, which is not something Eldrazi Tron does consistently, but I guess when you mulligan to 4 to find it, it's a little more consistent than it should be. Do we make any adjustments? And I think the answer is no. Eliminate cannot hit Karn, because Karn is 4 mana instead of 3. Eliminate basically is in the board to get rid of things like Teferi and Liliana of the Veil, mostly, from what I understand. Okay, well this is a Howling Mine on the play, but nothing else. You know what? I'm going to keep. YOLO. Opponent mulligans to 6. Well, if my opponent mulligans real low again, let's hope they don't have the same luck they did last game. Okay. Start island, pass the turn. Okay, opponent starts Eldrazi Temple. We untap. We draw Thoughtseize. Let me check the list here and make sure there's at least one Watery Grave. There is. Okay. I'm going to play an Island and Howling Mine, though. If my opponent plays a Thought-Knot Seer, which is, I think, the worst thing they could play off of an Eldrazi Temple, should be fine. Opponent does get an extra draw. It's an Urza's Tower, so it will not be a Thought-Knot Seer, which is really good for us. Okay, Chalice on 1 does suck, but it's not the end of the game. Okay, we draw an Exhaustion. So play Sunken Hollow, exhaust our opponent, pass the turn. Unfortunately, because of Chalice on 1, we cannot Flooded Strand into Mystic Sanctuary this turn, because we can't redraw Mystic Sanctuary. Okay, untap, we get a Snapcaster Mage, and a Brazen Borrower. Okay, play a Flooded Strand. Petty Theft Chalice. Thoughtseize our opponent. 3 different Karn Great Creators. 2 Thought-Knot Seers and a Chalice. So Karn is the biggest problem. Thought-Knot Seer is the next biggest. And then there's Chalice. I think I just take Chalice. There's nothing I can do about the rest of my opponent's hand right now. We could fetch Mystic Sanctuary and play Serum Visions to draw Exhaustion. The problem is, though, I don't want my opponent to be able to Thought-Knot Seer it out of our hand, so I'm just going to wait. It's a fine follow-up play if my opponent taps out for a Thought-Knot Seer here. Okay, they play Cavern on Eldrazi. Okay, they play Thought-Knot Seer, which is arguably the weaker of the cards they could play right now. They take Snapcaster Mage. Okay, on my opponent's end step, we will fetch Mystic Sanctuary, put Exhaustion on top of our deck, untap, we draw Exhaustion, and Polluted Delta. Polluted Delta is actually fantastic. Exhaust our opponent, play Polluted Delta, crack Polluted Delta, get a Mystic Sanctuary, put Exhaustion on top of our deck, then Serum Visions. We are going to sculpt our upcoming draws here. Another Polluted Delta, which we could do effectively the same thing with. I'm going to leave this on the bottom. I'm going to put that on the bottom, and I'm going to put this on the top. Pass the turn. So the only way this goes wrong is if my opponent top decks Urza's Mine in the next 2 draws. Then this kind of goes really wrong. If not, we will have a pretty good follow-up combination here. Opponent has an Urza's Tower. They get in for 4. They take us to 12. We draw Polluted Delta and 1 unknown. Opponent discards a Karn Great Creator. Thoughtseize. Okay. So we have some options. We can hardcast Part the Water Veil. We can play Brazen Borrower and exhaust. We can... I think we exhaust Mystic Sanctuary for exhaustion and then play Brazen Borrower. Actually, I think we exhaust Mystic Sanctuary for exhaust and then Thoughtseize our opponent. I think that's the play. Okay. Polluted Delta. Get a Mystic Sanctuary. Put Exhaustion on top of our deck. And then Thoughtseize our opponent. That's just such a strong line. Alright. Opponent has a Wastes, so they can play up to a 3-mana spell next turn, which does include Expedition Map. I'm going to take Walking Ballista, because I think that interferes with us the most at this point. So the only way this goes wrong is, once again, if my opponent gets a Mine somehow without using Expedition Map, if they just top deck Mine. If they top deck a Eldrazi Temple, it's also kind of bad, but there's nothing we can really do about that. So we have to get a little bit lucky here. Okay, pass the turn. I think this is their hand. Okay, plus 2 cards, obviously. Okay, that is a bit of a problem. But if that's the only thing they can do this turn, we should be fine. Okay, this is something we can absolutely recover from. So we draw Exhaustion, and another Part the Water Veil. So because our opponent did not Tech Edge immediately, we're going to just hardcast a Part the Water Veil and get a couple additional draws here. We get a Dictate of Kruphix, And our opponent is going to nuke Sunken Hollow. In that case, because they tapped out of all of their mana, we can flash Dictate. We don't get an additional draw this turn. Another exhaustion is amazing. Yeah, I think we've got this pretty well locked up. There's not going to be anything our opponent can do for a while, and we're drawing a bunch of cards. We do need to actually play a way to win the game, though. I no longer care about what's in my opponent's hand. They discard a wastes. We draw Cryptic, Island, Snapcaster. Okay, play a snow-covered island. Exhaust my opponent. Pass the turn. I'm going to flash Brazen Borrower and start beating down. So opponent's probably going to get a bunch of mana this turn, but this turn only. I wish we had one more so that we could hold up Cryptic Command here as well. Okay. Opponent plays a Thought-Knot Seer. They can pretty much take whatever they want here. It's not that big of a deal. If they take Part the Water Veil, that does decrease our overall game-winning clock by a lot. They do. Okay. But it's not the end of the world. Flash Brazen Borrower. Untap. Opponent has to discard Eldrazi Temple. We get a Jace the Mind Sculptor. We do need a warp we can cast or a land to cast Temporal Mastery. Okay. Not really what I asked for, but we can Snapcaster Mage and Exhaustion here, which should be fine. So go to combat. Attack for 3. Okay. Snapcaster. Target Exhaustion. Exhaust our opponent. Serum Visions. I'm going to put both of these lands on top of our deck. Okay. Pass the turn. Opponent draws extra cards. They play a Power Plant, which will let them crack map. And they pass. So we untap. We draw Caverns, a land, and something else. Another land. So play an island. Go to combat. Attack for 3 in the air. Okay, no blocks for our opponent. Temporal Mastery. And we lose. So there was nothing we could do to play around that at that point. That's one of the big fears with letting your opponent untap with so much mana so frequently, is that they could draw that. I kind of sensed it was coming, but I don't really know that there was anything I could have done about it. Okay, opponent plays Karn. Opponent takes Walking Ballista, which just kills us. Damn. We were very close to winning. Alright, you got me. Sad face. I probably could have played a little bit better, but this deck also was not set up to beat Eldrazi Tron or Tron-based matchups. You should just beat them all automatically, but Warping Whale will do it. It can get you. Alright, round 2. Here we go. This seems like a decent opener. We have Giga Draws for some early disruption and slowing them down, and we do have a Fatal Push. Okay. Draw me a land, Goblin Guide. Time Warp. Alright, well, Time Warp's fine. Play Polluted Delta. Pass the turn. This matchup is basically the reason we are playing black cards. Okay. Opponent plays a Legion Loyalist. They go to combat. Attack for 3. Top card of our deck is a Serum Visions. Well, we don't really want to draw Serum Visions. We kind of want to draw land. Get a Snow Swamp. And Fatal Push Goblin Guide. Okay. Take 1, go to 16. So, big issue, if you're playing Howling Mine versus Burn, be aware that you're giving Burn extra bolts, which Burn doesn't normally have, and they'll kill you faster. So, it's a little bit of finesse and finagling to beat your Burn opponents while they're drawing extra cards. You generally want to line it up so that your opponent is tapped out, you Flash Dictate at their end step, you want to exhaust them, that sort of thing. If you can control it. It's not always possible. Devastating Summons. Bushwhacker. Wow. What a line. Okay. We're taking 10 this turn, which is a lot. Okay, we go to 6. Our opponent does have 6 on board as well. Kind of need a miracle at Temporal Mastery, but we don't. Alright. Pass the turn. So we have to Giga Drowse tapping the 2/2s. Another Bushwhacker is lethal. Because we can tap the 2/2s, but then they attack for 6. Wow. That is a hell of a line. Devastating summons into Bushwhacker on 3. Alright. Well, the good news is we have a lot to fight this. So, Income, Collective Brutality, Dead of Winter. I think even Engineered Explosives can come in versus our opponent's deck, because we only really need to put it on 1 or 0. And it's sort of a board wipe. Okay. We could bring an Eliminate if we wanted more actual creature removal, but I think Collective Brutality can probably get the job done. The question is, what do we take out? Versus our opponent's deck, it's going to be very difficult to get to the high end of mana, and Jace the Mind Sculptor just dies to like every burn spell imaginable when playing against that opponent because we almost exclusively brainstorm with him. I think we cut probably 8 Part the Water Veil, a couple Serum Visions, and call it good. Yeah, try like this. Alright, I'll play first. We can do better. I think I'm fine keeping this on the play. We'll put back a Temporal Mastery, and we'll start Mystic Sanctuary tapped. This gives me the line of Brazen Borrower to unsummon something after it attacks. Opponent also mulligans to 6, which is good news. Okay, opponent plays a Mounted into a Foundry Street Denizen, which is a great card to unsummon. Okay, we untap, we draw Howling Mine. I'm going to take a huge risk and play Howling Mine, because we need to hit lands. Okay, opponent has another Foundry Street Denizen and a Fanatical Firebrand, so they're going to attack for 4 here. If we can draw a land and an exhaustion here, that'd be amazing. If we could top deck Temporal Mastery, that would be amazing. There's an exhaustion and a Giga Drowse. Okay, I am going to Serum Visions. I think I do need to hit a land. There's a land. Brutality we cannot cast, so Brutality at the bottom, Temporal Mastery to the top. Play Mikokoro. Pass the turn. We have Brazen Borrower's Petty Theft that we can cast. We could also Giga Drowse X1 if we really wanted to. I don't think we do, but we could. Okay, opponent plays another Fanatical Firebrand. And another Fanatical Firebrand. Okay, so we'll be unsummoning one of the Foundry Street Denizens this turn. And then hopefully Exhaustion will be enough to stave off most of the aggression for a bit. So, Petty Theft. Pass the turn, we untap and draw. Temporal Mastery, reveal it. See what else we draw first. Dictate. So, Miracle Temporal Mastery. Unfortunately, we have nothing else to play this turn. So, untap. Hopefully we get a land. Engineered Explosives. Engineered Explosives on 1 is not bad here. But we're going to have to exhaust our opponent because we really desperately need to hit lands, which is kind of amazing that we haven't hit lands in 4 extra draws when you're running 24 lands. It's a little unlucky, but nothing we can really do about that. Okay. Opponent does not have anything they can do. We draw another Dictate. I guess it's just explosive time. Oh, I should not have let them untap because they can sack those Firebrands. I forgot how those worked. That was a huge mistake. I am so sorry, everybody. Yep. Yep. Just took free Lightning Bolts. Should have... Or took a Lightning Bolt. I said took a free... I was trying to say take a free Lightning Bolt, but... Okay, opponent plays a Foundry Street Denizen. They go to combat. They attack. We will Engineered Explosives, because otherwise that puts us in Goblin Grenade range. Which, if they have Goblin Grenade, we're still dead, because they could just, like, Goblin and then Goblin Grenade, and we're at 1, and then we're dead to everything. Okay, opponent has a Mog Fanatic and a Legion Loyalist. We untap. We draw Watery Grave and Exhaustion. So, play Watery Grave, tapped. exhaust our opponent, pass the turn. If my opponent has untapped land Goblin Grenade, we die. Okay. They attack for 2. We go to 4. We untap. We draw Dead of Winter and Sunken Hollow. So this is why I really didn't want Dead of Winter in this deck. Mainly because it kills... I guess it kills everything on the board. It just doesn't feel great. So we can Engineered Explosives on 1, kill the board, and have 1 mana left over. Or we can Dead of Winter and have 1 mana left over. Engineered Explosives is technically stronger. Not by a lot, though. Okay, and we have to pay with a colored mana. We cannot use my Kokoro. Pass the turn. Yeah. I think I will play a Time Warps list again, probably after this one. I don't know how soon, but I have some ideas for adjustments, and I'm not a huge fan of this list. It's just the only one I could find that was anywhere near up to date, because nobody seems to play this deck anymore. And I guess we're kind of figuring out why, right? Opponent's attacking us to 2? Is 3 and 2 different numbers against this deck? I don't think so. I guess we'll find out. My opponent has 2 more Mog Fanatics, it will be. They already played 3 Fanatical Firebrand. Nope. They were just trying to draw out counter or some sort of action to make that a little bit safer. Respectable. Respectable opponent. Alright, well we didn't draw lands for 3 turns, so I got a feeling we should be doing better than that. I'll see you guys in round 3. Alright. Yeah, I can keep this. Opponent is playing a Yorion deck, worth noting. And they start Gilded Goose. Alright, so we're going to start Watery Grave. Fatal Push the Goose. You know, if you kicked a goose off of a tall building, wouldn't it be fine? I'm just saying, like, come on, Magic, flavor fails. Maybe it broke its wing or something, I don't know. Alright, opponent plays a Misty Rainforest. Passes. We draw Temporal Mastery, we're not going to reveal it. Play me Kokoro. Which is going to telegraph really hard to our opponent what we're playing. Okay. Opponent cracks Misty Rainforest. Gets an island. Flashes in an Ice Fang Quaddle. Alright. Well, not too scared of that. It's just a 1/1. Could pose bigger threats later, but we'll see. Okay. Opponent plays Breeding Pool untapped. Goes to combat. Gets in for 1. Sure. Take 1. Go to 16. And they play a Soul Herder. Alright, it's a pretty good value engine. I'm going to Cling to Dust their Misty Rainforest and draw a card. Okay. So they flicker Ice Fang and draw a card. We draw an island. So exhaust our opponent, because we're probably not going to get a better opportunity to do that. Okay, they play a Temple Garden tapped. They attack for 3. Take 3, go to 13. They exile Ice Fang and draw another card. Okay, we untap. We draw Polluted Delta. Alright, play a Snow-Covered Island, pass the turn, leave up Giga Drowse and Cryptic Command. We really need another way to... or we need a way to start drawing additional cards that we don't have. Okay. Opponent plays a Plains. They're going to play a Charming Prince. Okay. Probably going to slow flicker Ice Fang. Oh, they're just going to scry. Okay. 2 cards to the bottom. And then they put Yorion into their hand. Okay. We're going to tap our opponent's team and draw. We get a Howling Mine. All right, we'd like to draw an Exhaustion. So they flicker Ice Fang. We draw a Time Warp. Play Polluted Delta. Crack Polluted Delta. We're going to get a Mystic Sanctuary, putting Exhaustion on top, then cast Time Warp so that we can draw it. This is a way for our wish to come true. Extra turn. We draw Exhaustion. Play Howling Mine. Exhaust our opponent. Pass the turn. Okay. Opponent starts Windswept Teeth, sacrifices it and gets a forest. Plays a Noble Hierarch. Then gets in for 1. 2, actually, Exalted Trigger, I forgot. Okay, take 2, go to 10. Man, Soul Herder, Ice Fang. Seems kind of good. They're going to do this so they get an extra Slow Flicker and an extra untap. Oh, no, they're just going to scry. Okay. Alright, we untap, draw Jace, and part the Water Veil. Well, start warping. Untap, draw Snapcaster Mage, part the Water Veil. Are you kidding me? No lands? Play Jace. Brainstorm. Seriously? Okay. In that case, we put back past the turn, and we will try to Giga Drowse Soul Herder on my opponent's upkeep. Okay. They draw an additional card. They can swing and kill Jace. I can't believe that there's no lands in like the top 4 cards. Sometimes this deck just has problems like that, though. Opponent has a Deputy of Detention. That's kind of dangerous to play against our deck, because if we can answer that Deputy, we get a Jace back for potentially tempo positive mana. Like, if we can get a 1-mana Jace and cast a Time Warp, like, it's fantastic. So opponent attacks for 3. Sure. Go to 7. We're going to Miracle Temporal Mastery here. We're going to Flicker Charming Prince and go Scrying. Yep. Opponent has to discard for turn. They discard on Thin Ice. We draw and reveal Temporal Mastery. So cast Temporal Mastery. Serum Vision, see if we can't manipulate our next couple of top decks here. Okay, Temporal Mastery to the top. Swamp on top of Temporal Mastery. Serum Visions, draw Swamp. Watery Grave on top, Temporal Mastery on top of Watery Grave. Play Swamp. Okay. Pass the turn. Untap. Draw Temporal Mastery. Cast Temporal Mastery. Play Watery Grave. Untapped. Snapcaster. Target Fatal Push. Fatal Push Snapcaster. Flashback Fatal Push. Target Deputy of Detention. Get back Jace. Brainstorm. Okay. Put back Force of Negation and part the Water Veil. Doesn't really matter here. Okay. Untap. Draw those cards I just put back. Snapcaster Mage. Target Time Warp. It's usually more important to use your most expensive warp first. Alright, Brainstorm. Put back Dictate Force. Play Polluted Delta. Crack Polluted Delta. Get a Mystic Sanctuary. Put Time Warp on top of the deck, which is way better than putting Exhaustion back on top of the deck. Okay. We could start ticking up Jace and win that way. I mean, yeah, that sounds fun. Let's do that. Okay. We draw Time Warp, Sunken Hollow. Play Sunken Hollow. Fate Seal ourself. I will not put Temporal Mastery on the bottom. Holy crap. Awaken, part the Water Veil. Pass the turn. Untap. Miracle Temporal Mastery. Yep. Now we're starting to take multiple turns every turn. Seems pretty fantastic. Cast Temporal Mastery. Play Sunken Hollow. Actually, I'm going to start unsummoning stuff. Unsummon Noble Hierarch. They're going to path our... no, I don't think they will. So we're going to counter target spell, return target permanent to its owner's hand. Bouncing Charming Prince. If my opponent has another path, and they might, because they've cast like no creature removal this game and actually discarded it at some point, we're going to Ephemerate Charming Prince. Okay, that will counter Cryptic Command. But we have a turn in queue, so this isn't that big of a deal. Just make sure they have no more action. Wait, what? That's not supposed to work. Oh, no, 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 no. Okay. No, that still works, because Cryptic Command had 2 targets there. Because it was counter target spell and return target permanent. So, yeah, that still works. Okay. Unsummon that. Okay. 2 mode. Target creature gets -2/-2. Duress my opponent. Pitch Jace. Take Winds of Abandon. Go to combat. Attack for 6. No blocks. Opponent goes to 8. Okay. They get back their Ice Fang Quaddle. We untap. We draw Mystic Sanctuary and Flooded Strand. Time Warp ourselves. Put Time Warp back on top of the deck. Unsummon Ice Fang Quaddle. Go to combat. Attack for 6. Opponent jumps. Okay. And then we just warp again. Actually, we just attack. Go to combat. Kill our opponent. Alright. Well, we actually comboed that game, which felt good. That means I misspoke the last time I talked about Cryptic Command. You have to be careful if you're bouncing and drawing, or bouncing and tapping all creatures your opponents control, because if they remove what you're bouncing, it counters Cryptic Command, because there's technically no legal targets, even though the rest of the text doesn't require a target. But if you counter a spell and you bounce a permanent, if they remove the permanent or the spell gets countered by a different counter spell, you still do the opposite mode. Like, it still happens, because there's more than one legal target, and unless they're both invalid, it still goes off. So, my bad about that. Okay, so versus our opponent's deck, we definitely want Dead of Winter, we definitely want Collective Brutality, we might want Aether Gust, we'll see. So Giga Draws versus our opponent's deck is actually quite terrible, because they have so many mana dorks. You know what, I'm going to bring in an Eliminate as well. I'm going to bring an Eliminate over probably a Serum Visions. We're going to try it like this. Alright, we're on the draw, and we have a Serum Visions, and the rest of this hand is pretty good. Oh shoot, turn off auto guilds. We have a Force of Negation. Okay. They start Birds of Paradise. Okay, play an island, Serum Visions. Exhaustion. I'm going to put both of these lands on top. I really want to draw both of them. Sunken Hollow will actually come in untapped because we will have 2 basics, which just makes it Underground Sea, and that's amazing. Okay, I'm going to play as an Ashiok Dream Render because I was F6'd and can't Force Negation. Oh no, that was terrible. I just lost us this game. I'm so sorry, everybody. I tend to misplay like that a lot when I'm trying to elaborate on my thoughts. The other problem is I'm not used to playing with Force of Negation. I'm not used to playing with free counter spells. I didn't play Legacy. I didn't play Pauper. I don't daze people a lot. And I'm used to playing decks that tap out. So like if I see my lands are tapped, I'm just like, oh yeah, F6. And it's only thanks to Bone Daddy that I actually recently acquired Force of Negations and used them with any frequency. So yeah, I'm sorry. This game would be like over had we actually done what we were supposed to. Now we draw Watery Grave, play Watery Grave, exhaust our opponent. Problem is our opponent's going to get rid of enough cards out of our deck that we probably can't win, because we usually win with like 15 cards left in our library and we don't have Lab Man. Well, I shouldn't keep F6ing. Kano, you just mentioned that you shouldn't do that. At least this is only game 2, right? Yeah, this is only game 2, so there's game 3. Okay. Okay. Opponent's going to attack for quite a bit. I mean, we could still technically win right now, but I think it involves drawing Temporal Mastery and then a land in that order. Okay. Opponent can flicker a Noble Hierarch. Gets a counter. We untap. We draw Temporal Mastery. And a land. Wow. Alright, we might get there. Let's see if the Magic Gods think I deserve to be redeemed. I am going to Fatal Push one of the Noble Hierarchs here. Okay, now we just need to draw a land for Time Warp. Veil of Summer. Right, they want that Noble Hierarch to stay alive. Okay. So let's draw a land, shall we? Misty Rainforest. Temporal Mastery. Okay, not quite in the order we'd want, but... Right! Because Ashiok! It's a cruel joke. It's a cruel joke I played on myself. Pass the turn! Damn it. Okay. Well, opponent draws an additional card. I want to cast a Dictative Crucifix here. I think that's actually incorrect. I think we will draw... We'll draw too many cards before we can actually win the game. Okay, opponent puts Yorion in their hand. They can play Yorion and flicker a lot of their board and make Soul Herder huge, but they don't. Okay, opponent attacks for 5. We go to 8. Yeah, why didn't you do this pre-combat, dude? You could have... Oh, they're gonna exile Ashiok and mill another 5 cards. And then we definitely don't have enough cards to win. I can't believe I F6'd through that Force of Negation. I am so sorry. I am super on tilt about that, and I'll shut up about it after this game, but... Alright, let's do this. Alright, untap. Draw useless land, draw Cryptic Command, and draw Mikokoro. Perfect. Play Mikokoro. Extra turn. Pass the turn. This is our last Temporal Mastery, so there's no Temporal Mastery Cryptic Command bounce to Ashiok here. That's not a thing. Okay, we untap. Draw Island, Dictate, Cryptic. We only have one Part the Water Veil in exile, so we can use this one as a warp. Play an Island. Part the Water Veil. Pass turn. Untap. We draw Flooded Strand, Island, Howling Mine. Play an Island. Temporal Mastery. Discard Howling Mine. Untap. We draw Eliminate, Polluted Delta, Time Warp. Eliminate Ashiok. We might not have lands left to fetch, though. Play Polluted Delta. Let's find out. We do. Mystic Sanctuary. Put Time Warp on top of our deck. I don't know if you can hear my stomach growling, but my stomach decided it was really upset. Probably at all this bad Magic playing. Okay. Untap. Draw Time Warp. Draw land, draw Caverns. So, play Caverns. Time Warp. Tap all creature... You know what? Hang on. Return target permanent to its owner's hand and tap all creatures my opponent controls. Don't really need to draw an extra card here. Bounce that Temple Garden. Opponent is going to Ephemerate Yorion. Well, we have another Cryptic to tap our opponent's team. How many Mystic Sanctuaries do we have in the Exile Zone? None? Is that right? 1. So there's 1 left in the deck, okay. Alright. I'm gonna need another warp. Untap. Draw Sunken Hollow. Snapcaster Mage, perfect. Brazen Borrower. Play Sunken Hollow. Snapcaster Mage. Time Warp. Time Warp ourself. Cast Brazen Borrower. Untap. Draw Collective Brutality. Collective Brutality, Island. Okay. So, in order to warp again this turn, we have to bounce Snapcaster with Cryptic. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 mana. 11. We have 11 mana. So Cryptic is 4, Snapcaster's 2, Time Warp is 5. We could also fetch our other Mystic Sanctuary, put Time Warp on top of our deck, and then draw it with Mikokoro. I think I like that a little better. So, play a Flooded Strand, crack Flooded Strand, get Mystic Sanctuary, put Time Warp on top of our deck. Hang on, we could Cryptic bounce a Howling Mine and draw. We don't need that many turns to win. So, it takes 3 mana to draw. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, it takes 3 mana to draw, that takes us to 8. We can draw Time Warp, or it takes 4 mana to draw, that takes us to 7. We can Time Warp and then Collective Brutality. Okay. Return Howling Mine, draw a card. Okay. 3 mode. Duress, kill, drain. Discarding fetch lands. Nothing to duress. Time Warp. Go to combat. Attack. Okay. Opponent chumps, takes 2, goes to 13. We untap, we draw 2 cards. Dead of Winter, which we can't cast, and Part the Water Veil, which is amazing. We're going to Awaken Gemstone Caverns. Then we Collective Brutality, 3 modes. Dress, kill, drain. Pitch our Dictates. Go to combat. Attack for a bunch. Opponent can block, and then we untap, and then we kill them. Holy crap. We found the line after after completely failing to Force of Negation when I should have. The Magic Gods have smiled upon me favorably. And with 2 cards left in my library, we attack for lethal. You're welcome. Alright. We win a match that we probably didn't deserve to, but you know. Alright. I'll see you guys in round 4. Alright, we'll play first. Double Dictate, double Time Warp. We don't do anything early, but I think this is okay. We're on the play, so if we're playing an opponent who has hand disruption, we should be able to at least get down one of our Dictates. Okay, Unclaimed Territory, this is Humans. Aether Vial, alright. Humans is a tough matchup. They have a lot of hand disruption, and they have like Thalia, who increase their costs, they have Meddling Mage. It's a big deal. This is going to be a really tough match. For us to win, anyway. It's going to be real easy to lose. Okay. I'm just going to Violin, probably a champion. Okay. And here comes the Freebooter. When it gets to Pump Champion, take a look at what we're holding on to. Probably takes a Dictate, honestly. We take a Time Warp. If we untap, we draw Part the Water Veil, play an island, and pass. If my opponent activates Vial on 2, we have to cast Dictate because my opponent could be putting a Thalia into play. Thalia does set us back by a whole turn at least, if that's indeed what this is. Phantasmal Image. Okay. They get another Freebooter, which means they can take our other Time Warp. And if they have a Meddling Mage, they can name Part the Water Veil, and we're basically dead in the water. Yep, there goes our Time Warp. So what would be a good card to draw here? Jace would be fairly decent. Miracling Temporal Mastery, of course, would be amazing. The naming Dictate of Krufix. Alright, opponent thinks we're going to be dead before we can cast Part the Water Veil, and they might be right. They attack us for 5, so we take 5 and go to 15. We untap, draw Polluted Delta, and Jace the Mind Sculptor. So, play Polluted Delta, crack it, get an island. Now we can either Jace Brainstorm, or we could Jace Unsummon Freebooter, which I'm kind of tempted to do. Brainstorm's probably better. Okay, put back Sunken Hollow, Temporal Mastery. Pass the turn. Okay. Opponent untaps. Opponent gets to draw an additional card. So 100% they kill Jace this turn. There's no way they can let us untap with that, or they would probably just lose. They play a Waterlogged Grove. Probably a budget substitution for Horizon Canopy. I don't know that they actually play that many green humans. I mean, Gaddock Teague out of the sideboard will really suck, and that's something we have to watch out for, because they do play Gaddock Teague in the side. Even though it's not a human, the Hate Bear effect is super strong. Oh, I forgot about Noble Hierarch. Yeah, they do play Noble Hierarch. Hump Champion. Another Meddling Mage. Alright. Art the Water Veil. You know, it really sucks when your Thoughtseizes have legs. When your opponent's Thoughtseizes have legs, excuse me. Man, so many cards in this deck line up to be really powerful. There's like Kiteseal Freebooter lets you look at your opponent's hand. Meddling Mage lets you Nevermore. Certain cards like Champion of the Parish allows you to play that first and have a huge clock by playing the other cards. Then you can have things like Reflector Mage to bounce opponents' creatures that are in the way, and then Mantis Rider to close out the game, and like Thalia to disrupt your opponent's mana. It's just... Humans is a good deck. The good news is post-sideboarding we'll have Collective Brutalities, Dead of Winter, and a few other cards to help shore up the matchup a little bit. Opponent really thinking about what to name here. If they name Temporal Mastery, I'm just done. This is like nothing we could do about that. That's probably what they're thinking about. They're like, they just brainstormed with Jace. Do they have Temporal Mastery? Cryptic Command. Okay. Well, that sucks, but it's not the end of the game yet. But it will have to divert some creatures to kill Jace this turn. Yep. And we take 7. Okay. Jace goes down. We untap. Miracle Temporal Mastery. Forgot what I put under it at this point. Sunken Hollow. Kind of need to draw a Fatal Push. Thalia? Really? Is that their last card in hand? Phantasmal Image. Oh, okay. I thought they were going to Phantasmal Image Meddling Mage and be like, no, you can't cast Temporal Mastery. What a jerk. Well, cards. Good cards, opponent. Alright, so post-sideboarding, we have a little bit better matchup. I think. Brutalities eliminates in, Dead of Winter in, and Engineered Explosives in. Giga Drow's out, Cling to Dust out. Force of Negation doesn't do anything. It does counter Aether Vial, but we only have 1, and it's not likely. Cut a Serum Visions, and another Serum Visions. Try it like this. This could be a Thing in the Ice matchup, but I'm going to try it this way first. It's been a while. Just realized I didn't bring in Thing in the Ice versus Goblins. I totally glazed over that card, so somebody's probably yelling at me. Cut me some slack. It's been a while since I played this list. Well, Anytime Warp list, I mean, but... Alright, we'll play first. Okay, we do have a Collective Brutality, and we are on the play. We're not doing anything else with this hand, though. I'm actually going to mulligan that. So, if we keep this hand... Our opponent gets to just take Dictate and we're dead in the water. This hand is fine, except there's no black mana. I'm going to keep it, and I'm going to put back Cryptic Command and Jace the Mind Sculptor. Star Mystic Sanctuary, pass the turn. Really need to draw black mana and a Howling Mine effect. Okay, opponent starts Ancient Ziggurat into Champion of the Parish. We cannot Miracle Temporal Mastery, play an island. Pass the turn. Second champion. Opponent gets in for 2. Sure. We untap. And this is how we die. Well, I mean, like, I knew keeping a hand with no black mana would probably be bad. But, like, I don't think either of our other hands would have fared much better. Really, I don't. If we kept our hand of 6, we could have probably dictated. Yeah, we would have been able to dictate, but... Alright, opponent has a Thalia's Lieutenant. And they get to pump the whole team. They hit us for 7. We go to 11. Untap. Mystic Sanctuary. It's going to be a turn too late. My opponent plays anything, we lose. Well, sometimes you just get humaned. They're gonna Phantasmal Image Thalia's Lieutenant. Yep, and that's the game. Alright, let's see if we can win back our 50 play points. See you guys in round 5. Alright. Round 5, here we go. Would love to play first. Every time I play first, I have a Gemstone Caverns in our opener. I don't think I can actually pass this up. We will be able to, like, Mystic Sanctuary Exhaustion loop at least once. And that felt amazing. Okay, opponent plays a Breeding Pool tapped. We untap, we draw Dictate. Play an island, pass the turn. Okay, opponent plays a Breeding Pool untapped. We draw another island, play it, so that way we can Mystic Sanctuary off of Misty Rainforest. Okay, opponent Growth Spirals. So they're probably Temur Scapeshift or Uro Pile to play a forest. Exhaustion going to be kind of hard to resolve. We're going to flash Dictate of Krufix. Opponent remands. Alright, untap. Draw Watery Grave. Play Watery Grave untapped. Play Jace. If they only have Bolt to stop Jace, we do get to stack a Temporal Mastery on top of our deck, which will be amazing. Right, they pitch Fact or Fiction to a Force of Negation. So they are almost certainly the, what do you call it? Uro Pile list. Alright. Play Mikokoro. Pass the turn. When it does not crack Misty Rainforest. We play a Field of Ruin. Opponent passes. On their end step, we'll try and Dictate. Okay. Opponent Cryptic Commands. Sure. We untap. Draw Polluted Delta. Play Polluted Delta. Exhaust our opponent. If they have Remand, we can just do that, but because they didn't do anything, we're going to get a Mystic Sanctuary, put Exhaustion on top of our deck, and then draw it with Mikokoro on our opponent's end step. Okay, opponent cracks Misty Rainforest. It's a Mystic Sanctuary. Puts Cryptic on top of their deck. Okay, so they draw a Cryptic command. They play a Scalding Tarn. Crack Scalding Tarn. In response to another Mystic Sanctuary targeting Force of Negation, I would draw right now. Okay. So that prevents them from drawing Force of Negation. But they put Force of Negation on top. They play Uro. And they're going to draw Force of Negation that way. Okay, well we need to draw something else good. Snapcaster Mage. Doesn't really do it, unfortunately. Play Misty Rainforest. Cast Exhaustion. See what they exile. Oh, they're not going to exile something to Force of Negation. Well, alright then. They probably feel pretty safe with a free counter spell. Okay, crack Misty Rainforest, get a Mystic Sanctuary. Put Exhaustion on top of our deck. Draw an additional card so that we get Exhaustion. Untap. We get an island. Play an island. Exhaust our opponent. Okay. They're going to force pitching Cryptic. Okay. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They play an island. So they probably just cast Uro out of the grave. Yep. Okay, so they draw an additional card. They can put a land into play. So one of the Triomes. I'll activate Mikokoro. Draw an island. Untap. Draw Polluted Delta. Play an island. Try and cast a Temporal Mastery here. I imagine this gets countered. It does not. Interesting. So opponent's going to save a counter spell for a more important spell. Like potentially a Time Warp. Play Polluted Delta. Time Warp targeting ourself. It resolves. Okay, get our last Mystic Sanctuary. Put Time Warp on top of our deck. Draw it with Mikokoro. Pass the turn. We have to be careful about using Mikokoro from here on out. Okay, opponent hits Mikokoro. A little bit late, I think. Get another island. If they have like an Archmage's Charm or a Remand, it's gonna kind of suck. Actually, Remand, we could actually just recast Time Warp, but... So, play Gemstone Caverns. We're just gonna cast Time Warp. If they have Remand, we can cast it again. If they have Force Negation, they would just Force. So, untap, draw Cryptic. Okay. So we're going to try and tap 2 of their lands in Uro. This takes them off of everything except for Force of Negation, which if they have, we're pretty screwed anyway. Snapcaster Mage. Target Time Warp. Time Warp, target ourselves. Okay, so they had Force of Negation anyway. And they had Force of Negation because we drew them 100 cards off of Mikokoro. Main deck Ashiok. That's a problem. I think this deck is kind of our worst nightmare. No blocks, take 6, go to 9. So short of a resolved Part the Water Veil, I don't think there's much we can do. Go to combat. Attack our opponent. Time Warp ourself. Okay, opponent cracks Scalding Tarn for Mountain. Okay, we untap. Draw Polluted Delta. Play Polluted Delta. Go to combat. Attack our opponent for 2. Bounce Snapcaster, draw card. They definitely have a Bolt, though. Yeah, I knew that was going to happen. So, Cryptic Command gets countered, we do not draw a card. Pass the turn, and we're dead to Bolt. Opponent just bolts our face. A Growth Spiral. Just drawing a card. Okay, opponent exiles our grave, along with everything we ever hoped and dreamed. Gets us down to 3. Plays a Renin 6. Shoots us to 2. Does that matter? We get a Cryptic. Bounce a row, draw a card. Yeah, alright. Go to next game. Okay, versus our opponent's deck. Fatal Push out. Thoughtseize in. What else do we want? So, we might want to eliminate, considering our opponent is running Ashiok. It does technically hit Uro as well, so it's not horrible. It might actually be better than Collective Brutality. There is Aether Gust, but Aether Gust does not hit Ashiok. It only hits Uro and Renin 6, which I guess is not terrible, but I think we just run it back like this. I now understand why no one plays this card or plays this deck anymore, and it's basically because Force of Negation exists. You're going to tap out for a huge non-creature spell on your turn, well, I'm going to counter it for free. And Giga Drowse is no longer like meaningful enough, which is really disappointing because I love taking extra turns. And the deck is still powerful. Like, we had some really awesome games. But, like, alright, that sucks. Gonna play a Water Grave tapped. Pass the turn. Yeah, I think with some tweaks we could make this deck better. But I think because Force of Negation exists, it in its current variation that I'm playing right now, really not very good. Like, you could play green, so you could have access to things like Veil of Summer and Growth Spiral. But at that point, you're not playing Time Warps. You want to play like Wilderness Wreck Nexus. So, yeah, I don't know. I just don't know. Okay, opponent plays a Scalding Tarn, cracks Scalding Tarn, gets a Stomping Ground, probably casts Uro here. Nope, it's a Renin 6. Interesting. They pick up Scalding Tarn, draw Watery Grave, play Snow Covered Island, pass the turn, leave up Cryptic.
We did not get a Howling Mine effect, which means warping does basically nothing. Okay, opponent plays Scalding Tarn, cracks Scalding Tarn, gets an island, picks up Scalding Tarn, casts Ashiok. Well, counter and draw. Yep, this deck is our worst nightmare. It is a combination of every effect that we have trouble fighting. Alright, well. See if we can warp and draw to force a negation. Okay, the old no-value warp. Miracle Temporal Mastery would be pretty good if we had a Howling Mine effect. Because we have... Can't search our library, never mind. I'm not on tilt. Well, I mean, I am a little bit on tilt, but that's not why I did that. Okay. Shock Watery Grave. Time Warp ourself. Cling to Dust, Veil of Summer. Draw a card. Mystic Sanctuary. Okay. Untap. Draw land. Mystic Sanctuary. Time Warp to the top. Temporal Mastery. And opponent was slow rolling a force this entire time. Which is incredibly tilting. Because it's like, they could have just stopped us at any time, right? Ugh. I don't even want to play this out, actually. I don't want to end anyone's enjoyment early, but this league has already gone on for 2 hours, and I'm not fighting through this. I'm not beating my opponent here. And I'm not saying that as in, I don't think I can beat my opponent. I don't want to try to beat my opponent. I'm saying I can't beat my opponent. My opponent has free counter spells, Veils of Summer, Ashioks, and like Fields of Ruin for our special lands. They just have every single way to fight us, short of Thoughtseize. So, alright. Well, unfortunately, we did not win our entry back. Probably should have won game 1, or round 1, but of course, Warping Whale got us. And yeah, I think this deck needs a lot of changes. And unfortunately, like, you just can't play the old version. You need to play something new. And I think the new version needs to be Simic. I really think you need access to Veil of Summer, because otherwise you're just going to fall to hand hate and counter spells. I think Growth Spiral is a card that you can't afford not to play. And I really do believe that the only way to play turns right now is probably Wilderness Reclamation, Nexus of Fate. And that's not really the turns deck. It's a different deck. It plays very differently, and I understand that a lot of people who play turns will tell me that's not the same deck, and I totally get that. But if you want to play a deck where you're taking extra turns and you actually want to win, I think you have to play Simic Nexus. I really do. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video. More, I guess, limited content up next. We'll see you guys next time. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're so inclined. You can also follow me on Twitch, same username on there as you'll find me on here. I stream every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, which is 8 p.m. Eastern. We're getting very, very close to 200 subscribers, which I'm pretty thrilled about. I thought I would never get there, because for a long time I just wasn't getting any, and then there's been a massive explosion since I started doing constructed content again. So, yeah. Alright, well, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!